With that in mind, are we choosing to be burned out? Is it true constant action is the best way to succeed in the long term? If not, can we shake the idea that if we aren't constantly busy, we won't succeed? I believe we can. Once I realized Messi was including reflection to feed his actions, I wondered if I could deconstruct his process to learn more. As I dug deeper, I found Messi is not only the best in the world, but he tells us he is having fun like a child in the street. When we mimic successful people and only focus on the action portion of their lives, we tend to forget reflection can not only make us better at what we do, but can help us enjoy it as well. If we add reflection to our actions, we will come away with a future we want to engage with and achieve results that are far more impactful. I believe it because I've seen it for myself. As 2019 ended, I was ending nearly a decade of pushing myself to be more. The pushing began with my leaving an engineering position to seek a new one in innovation management in a new state. Within 3 years, I changed everything again. I went back to a college for a master's degree in industrial design in another new state. My internal drive came from the idea this was the chance to finally have my moments of instinct in my career, and in my mind, that meant I would be more successful. There were some successes in the short term, but the company's long-term plans of maximizing my new skills were lost in a management shuffle, and I found myself between jobs. I decided I needed a sabbatical. I felt the need to reassess and to at least refine, if not completely redefine, what I was doing. This was likely the first time in a long time I had actually reflected on what I was about. That muscle was quite weak, and I felt unsure and awkward. I decided to get back to the basics and see where the fundamentals led me. Throughout my career, there had been a process, and often a design process, that my colleagues and I considered a common language to help facilitate collaboration. As an engineer, I used an engineering design process that focused on solving a problem by designing, building, and testing something. In innovation, the process started with the market opportunity and nailing down the value proposition. In industrial design, the process included user research for more open-ended discovery and quick processing of information and iterations to help create focus. As I moved to each of these different career positions, I found the inherent processes often opposed one another. I did not want to go back to any one aspect of my career, and therefore I did not want to go back to only one type of process. So the focus of my sabbatical became a time to answer the question, what is my process? I did not start with a process I knew, but with one I had never seen before. I wanted a fresh experience to guide me on my way. I was following a number of authors such as Christina Rilo and Dr. Ezzie Spencer, who were combining modern management practices with ancient wisdom to coach women on transforming their lives. From these readings, I was inspired to choose what might be considered out there or too feminine to some. And I completely understand that response. I had spent much of my career following processes that emphasized action and busyness. I was seeking a more balanced approach and chose to follow a reflective practice. The phases of the moon served as a timepiece to guide me on when to gather information, when to plan, when to act, and even when to reflect. I found the cyclical nature brought a rhythm to my life. While using the cycle, my projects did not go on forever. There were small deadlines within the cycle that encouraged me to focus versus chasing a rabbit down a hole. There were preset times for various activities that helped me know the undertaking of this phase was all I needed to do, because I could trust there was another time for anything that crossed my mind. I could place a stray thought aside and avoid the temptation of jumping on it immediately. I could also trust I would get to that thought later and not feel guilty I was adding one more thing to my list of untouched tasks. I was able to take a longer view and break large projects into smaller bites over various cycles. Working this way encouraged me with smaller successes and helped me see how each cycle was connected to successfully finish a larger accomplishment. I would begin with forming an intent for the entire cycle. Remind myself of that intent at every phase, and make decisions on how the details based on that intent. I would end with a review of the entire cycle to see how it went. The time I would take could range from 15 minutes to an hour, but I always left these moments knowing where I was, where I was going, and what I had accomplished. I made a rule of not pushing myself. In return, I felt a sense of gratitude and joy. I marveled over this, so much so that every time the gremlin inside growled, I was being lazy or losing ground or would be seen as a failure if I didn't push. I actually went to battle with that gremlin to protect myself from going into burnout again. My victory was seeing more get accomplished at higher quality and enjoying myself a great deal more. When I did not reflect, I would get lost in details and slowly lose a sense of control. The idea of this book is to explore how can we instill in our actions a mindset of intentional reflection taken from the power of nature's cycles. We can look to nature for inspiration, but like any other new thing, creating and working your own process can feel awkward. With practice, we can make it a part of our approach to everything. We can shift our mindset, play the long game, and become natural reflectors. Being inspired by nature, one can quickly see it is always adapting. And so this book will consider a number of process principles that can be readily applied and adapted to your situation. Some principles may work for you today as an employee of a corporation or firm, but tomorrow, when you're a manager, it may make sense to revisit and adjust and add a few more. You may be a creative designer who doesn't want to be confined by a process, or an entrepreneur who feels a process will just distract you from the hustle of keeping afloat. The principles can also be stretched and compressed to suit the timing you give it. Just as nature has cycles that are short as a breath and as long as 4 seasons, you can apply these principles hourly, daily, monthly, or yearly. To guide us along the way, I've collected ideas and stories from some of the greatest minds in design, authentic practitioners, and my own tumblings and triumphs. We will dive into ideas from Bill Burnett at Stanford Life Design Lab on how we cannot make good decisions without our mind and body. We will spend some time with Stacy Levy, an environmental artist who follows nature's processes in urban environments, to pull out the stories that surround each of us. We will also spend time reviewing my own times of doubt and how I struggled through to the other side in this journey. As you begin your journey from burnt out to engaging in a life that matters to you, I want to pass on the greatest piece of advice my advisor in industrial design gave me. Anytime I was confused or struggling, she would tell me, "Jennifer, trust the process." Even when I was working through this sabbatical, she would remind me of it again. I felt quite empowered because it was one thing to trust a time-honored design process, but another entirely to trust my process, particularly in its infancy. She believed in me and knew I was working through the ordinary details to design my life into something special. Trust this is your time to create your process.